day 11 of 31 days of cold plunging. I'm going to be talking a bit about tree energy today. Get ready for it. This won't be the first of this kind of recording.
Did you know that trees can help us transmute energy? That's right. If you feel a bit negative, you can go and make contact with the tree, and it will help you transmute that negative energy into positive energy just by simply making contact with it, by hugging it and breathing it in. And we're going to go over some of that in this video, as well as other benefits that trees give us. There's also something called forest bathing, which is where you basically get into the forest and have a bath that the forest gives you. Inhale the gorgeous aroma of the forest and let it just sink into your skin, into your body, into your soul. It's my favorite pastime, and there's not really much that you have to do. Just wander into the forest and immerse yourself in it. The term forest bathing emerged in Japan in the 1980s, and I'm going to pronounce this possibly wrong, but it's called Shinrin-Yoku. Shinrin-Yoku. A physiological anthropologist who's named Yoshifumi Miyazaki studied the physiological and psychological benefits of it. And the results? Humans feel most comfortable and are most healthy while in nature, even those who dislike outdoor endeavors. Right, nature restores us. There's also a Japanese scientist, Ching Li, who conducted an experiment with 12 businessmen where he sent them out on a 3-day hiking trip into the forest. He took blood and urine samples and collected them all before the trip and after the trip. He also tracked their hormone levels, blood pressure, and levels of natural killer cells. And the results? Well, all of the men's blood pressure levels dropped, and all of their natural killer cells increased by 40%. Even after a month, the natural killer cells were still raised. What are natural killer cells? They're a type of lymphocyte that the immune system depends on. They kill off stress cells, infected cells, and tumor-forming cells. So yeah, they're cancer fighters and much more. Studies can be fun, but is it really a surprise that forest bathing has all of these different benefits? And I'm sure that there's more than I've mentioned here. But is it really a surprise? We evolved with nature. We are nature. And our composition has been programmed by nature to respond to nature's cells, its systems, and its rhythms. Do we always need to quantify what our intuition can point us to? If we're willing to let it, of course. Or let go into it. There was a time when I lost touch with my intuition and my spirituality as a whole. I became a total skeptic, and I demanded everything to be proven by science and quantified. But you see, as I unblocked a lot of programming that only held me back, and as I healed multiple ailments that I used to suffer greatly from, my spirituality unblocked. It expanded, as well as my health, of course, and this hit a new level for me when I started living outdoors, especially. And then one day, I realized that I wasn't obsessed with studies anymore. And I mean obsessed, like where I had to go and immediately type something into Google to validate my hunch. These days, there's not this urgency to quantify experiential knowledge that I can get through my own personal experience and awareness of cause and effect. I'm not trying to chase down studies to validate my experiences. But with that being said, I still enjoy research studies, of course, especially interesting ones like these. Well, let me rephrase that. I enjoy the ones that are actually unbiased and not paid off by huge industries that appear to have invested interest in enslaving humanity, in profiting off keeping us just sick enough, just dumb enough, just dependent enough on toxicity and these systems that perpetuate the toxicity. We're disconnected from each other as we fight over agendas used to divide us. And human connection is also a part of our nature, an essential component to it. We're disconnected from source, from our spirituality, from our intuition, from nature, which is the immediate access to our divinity while in human form as we exist on this glorious planet. I want us to note, to remember that it's important to get the energetic consent of a tree first. Energetic consent. I know that sounds like hippie hogwash to some people, but not all trees want to participate. I mean, geez, there's some trees that will actually burn you if you touch them. Most are pretty chill, but even if what I was saying was hogwash, it's still good practice to ask first. Don't just take, because that is the problem that we've gotten ourselves into on this planet. We've thrown reverence and gratitude away. We're raping and pillaging Mother Earth. And now we wonder why we have so much disease, dis-ease, disease, and toxicity in our bodies, in our minds, in our souls, even though the status quo these days is to believe that we don't have souls. The change that we want to experience starts within, always within. If we get the energetic consent of a tree, then they will transmute our energy easily and restore us in a way that really you just have to go and hug one and breathe with it in order to understand. So how do we get their energetic consent? Just ask them. And you don't necessarily even have to ask verbally. I do because I love to talk to my tree friends, but I don't sometimes. You can ask them by just thinking the question and focusing the energy of that question outward. This is how we connect with intuition, basically. And there can be a lot of overthinking this. But whatever answer comes up initially, that is the answer. It takes practice, once again, just like all other intuitive exercises do. And let me tell you that this has been a work in progress for me. When I first set out on this era of my spiritual journey out in nature, I would pick up a lot of rocks. And there was a particular rock that I took from a particular place, and I took it in vain. I had to recall that the emotion that came up when I took it, not when it was given to me, when I took it, was a greedy one. It was filled with shame. And that rock, well, it kind of haunted me for a little bit till I returned it back to its place, which took a whole year for me to get back to and return it to. And once I did, felt relieved. So, as crazy as that sounds, it's one of those things that I just know of now. I know how to communicate with nature more, and I've gotten better and better at it, where it just is a natural thing for me, which leads me to the point that, like I said, I don't always talk outwardly. As I've been outdoors more and more, I can just read the body language of different trees and know their response or their vibe. And yes, I know that sounds crazy to some, but it wouldn't be crazy to some of our ancestors. And it isn't crazy to many native people. And it definitely isn't crazy to any shamans. But it does sound crazy to most people today because we're so disconnected from nature. Even though it sounds crazy, it's something that when you immerse outdoors more, you tap into. And I suggest that we all immerse in nature more and to do it more often alone. Because what also happens when you immerse in nature alone is you experience a delicious kind of solitude, uninterrupted by others and their talking or judgments. If you immerse solo, like I have, you'll find that you can never truly be alone amongst the living, breathing ecosystem. Instead, you enjoy a kind of solitude that makes you feel at peace, being human, that makes you feel an amazing sense of purposelessness. Yes, I said that. Purposelessness. Like no purpose. Like you don't need to have a purpose to justify your existence. Because Mother Earth created you. You are a child of Mother Earth. She already birthed you. You need not justify. And you feel small. A good kind of small, but connected. And that makes you let go of the ego, which, as we must know, is oh so troubling when we get wrapped into it. So let's touch on that for a moment. I love these words by Alan Watts. I'll tell you what hermits realize. If you go off into a far, far forest and get very quiet, you'll come to understand that you're connected with everything. That every little insect that comes buzzing around you is a messenger. And that little insect is connected with human beings everywhere else you can hear. You become incredibly sensitive in your ears and you hear far off sounds. And just by the very nature of isolating yourself and becoming quiet, you become intensely aware of your relationship with everything else that's going on. So if you really want to find out how related you really are, try a little solitude off somewhere and let it begin to tell you how everything is interdependent in the form of what the Japanese call Jiji Mugi. Ji means a thing event. So it means between thing event and thing event, there is no block. Everything in the world, every event, is like a dewdrop on a multi-dimensional spider's web. And every dewdrop contains the reflection of all the other dewdrops. I love a bit of Alan Watts, don't you? So I suggest that we all immerse in nature more, and to do so more often, and enough to start listening and talking to trees, or to Mother Earth in general. If people went outdoors more, they'd understand everything I'm saying on a visceral level, on an intuitive level. What I'm saying cannot be understood or quantified by the mind. If people went into nature more, they'd also be much healthier, as I'm telling you in these studies. And yes, they've done studies on tree hugging. Tree hugging helps you relax. People who hug trees feel calmer than those who don't hug trees. It's also known to increase oxytocin levels. Oxytocin, if you haven't heard of it yet, it's a hormone that's linked to emotional bonding, feelings of calmness, well-being, and trust. And many articles, especially ones that are about sex, love, or relationships, like to call oxytocin the love drug because it creates attachment bonds with those who we have an intimate relationship with. Yes, hint, hint, for better or worse, my dear. So choose intimate partners wisely if you can, or learn to do so by means of suffering, as I have, as many of us have, right? C'est la vie. Oxytocin is produced through touch. It's produced through sex and during breastfeeding. It's also produced by different nutrients in various healthful foods and from herbs and supplements. Hugging trees also lowers cortisol levels, blood pressure, and heart rate. So yeah, it can help lower the risk of a heart attack. And let's also note that when cortisol is released, we can get anxious, angry, or depressed. So hugging a tree lowers all of this too, which is amazing. Nature has the medicine as usual. Duh. Why do we keep doubting this? That is the status quo. And here's another thing. The bark of a tree is loaded with terpenes. These are a type of phytoncides. The scent molecules of trees, called phytoncides, are volatile organic compounds, and terpenes are the main component. Coined in 1928 by Russian biochemist Boris P. Tokin, phytoncide means exterminated by the plant. Dr. Tokin established that these substances are part of the botanical self-defense system. They deter insects, animals, and microbes from eating the plant. Some phytoncides draw pollinators to them, and some protect plants from disease and getting eaten. Pines and conifers release large amounts into the air to suppress surrounding microorganisms, bacteria, and fungi from invading them. Other plants, including spices, onion, garlic, and many varieties of flowers, tea tree, oak, and countless others, release these compounds as well. Terpenes are what gives some trees, like the spruce tree, its amazing smell. Oh my gosh, I love spruce, and they're featured in this video, especially towards the end where we get to the cold plunge. Pine trees have terpenes too, and so does lavender and cannabis and so many, many more plants. If you talk to a cannabis enthusiast, you'll probably start hearing them utter a lot of stuff about terpenes in no time. I've been caught in many conversations about terpenes with cannabis enthusiasts. Terpenes are also a big part of essential oils, and essential oils have loads of health benefits, such as boosting the immune system and our mood and lowering stress and anxiety. And they're anti-inflammatory. If you want to learn about essential oils and botanicals and much more, I highly recommend the book Renegade Beauty by Nadine Artemis. She also delves into the history of essential oils in this book, and it's written like poetry in some places. It's filled with holistic remedies. Nadine is a true inspiration, a goddess who's graced the earth with her presence. And her entire product line of living libations is incredible, top-notch. You go on the website and click on any essential oil, and you can see the certification on it that validates where it's from and where it's grown and the properties. It's so cool. She's a real deal. And some of the research that I've put into this video has come from her publications. Thank you, Nadine. So yeah, go hug a tree and breathe in its aroma. And know that if you get into the forest, if you can get into the forest, I know that some of us live in concrete jungles, so that's why I encourage everyone to just make it a priority to get into any little slice, any little sliver of nature you can, even if it's connecting with that one tree in your yard or down the street. But if you can get into the forest, know that you are not only in the company of lots of lovely trees, but of an entire ecosystem of living, breathing, vibrating Mother Gaia, which we are each a part of. And once again, if you live in a concrete jungle or something otherwise that is a little bit disconnected from the pure expansiveness of nature, know that you still are encapsulated by nature somehow, because we're all connected to this earth, right? And studies indicate to hug a tree and breathe it in for at least 21 seconds to get the positive effects.
There are a lot of mosquitoes, so I am wearing this and I'm just gonna whip it off and then get in there after I do this breath work. That was certainly cold, but honestly, what's worse than the cold are the mosquitoes. This is probably my favorite place. I come back here every year. And as I've been doing that plunge, apart from whacking at the mosquitoes a little bit, I'll learn to accept them at some point again. I thought, oh my God, this is so cold. I can't wait for the 2 minutes to be over. And then I was like, no, but this is my favorite place. I came in and plunged in here a few years ago, and it's one of my favorite memories that I go back to over and over again. And everything changes in life, you know? That tree over there behind this one, it's changed. Since last year when I said goodbye to it, and it gave me a scrape, which I said thank you for. I will miss you. And I thought of that scrape, I looked at it, and I felt, as masochistic as this sounds, I felt a strange pleasure that came from that scrape, that it cut me, because I knew that I would be missing that tree in this place so dearly. And I come back and I say hello to it today. And it is now leaning over onto the tree next to it, and lightning has struck it. Who knows when since last year. So it is it has a big crack in it, a big crevice now. and I gave it my energy. I sent energy to it, which it never really feels like I'm just giving energy to a tree when it's down, or a plant when it is in bad shape, because they always give energy back. It is incredible. Seriously, if you ever need to, they're relentless, the mosquitoes. If you ever need to transmute energy, go ask a tree for its energetic consent first. See if it wants to be hugged. And if it's okay with that, if it wants to, not all want to, okay? You learn to talk to them, and you learn to listen to them, by the way, the more you hang out with them. Ask a tree if you can hug it, and if it wants to be hugged, you'll experience an energy transmission like no other, because it is from a tree. Remember, trees give us so much prana. They're giving us air all the time, right? I love my tree friends. Thank you for joining.
Like this video, subscribe.
And I'll see you tomorrow in day 12.